The breaking point. The Harmony's Edge station floated in neutral space like a monument to galactic cooperation. Its massive structure held representatives from 97 different species, all gathered for the annual Galactic Unity Forum. The station's architecture reflected contributions from dozens of civilizations, creating a blend of styles that should have symbolized peace and partnership. Instead, it had become a reminder of who held power and who did not. Ambassador Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped through the airlock with her small delegation of 5 human diplomats. She had been Earth's representative to the forum for 7 years now, and each year felt heavier than the last. Her dark hair was pulled back in a professional style, and her formal diplomatic uniform bore the emblem of United Earth. She carried a data tablet containing proposals that her team had spent 8 months preparing. The main assembly hall was enormous. The ceiling stretched upward into artificial sky projections that cycled through views of different homeworlds. Floating platforms held the various delegations, each customized for their species-specific needs. The Zephyrins occupied platforms of condensed energy fields. The Krell sat on heated stone slabs that mimicked their volcanic homeworld. The Silvery delegation floated in spheres of liquid atmosphere. High Arbiter Zenthar called the session to order. He belonged to the Vorian species, beings who had mastered space travel when human ancestors were still living in caves. His crystalline body refracted light in patterns that indicated his mood. And right now, those patterns showed calm authority. His species had led the Galactic Unity Forum for 3,000 years. "We gathered to address matters of galactic importance," Zenthar announced in the common trade language. His voice resonated through translation devices that every delegate wore. "First on our agenda is the territorial reorganization proposal for Sector 7. Elena knew what this meant. Sector 7 included 3 human colonies that had been established 40 years ago. The colonies were thriving now, home to millions of humans and centers of agricultural production, but larger, older species wanted access to those systems. Ambassador Talth of the marine species raised a manipulator appendage. The marine were small insectoid beings whose civilization was only 500 years old. Like humanity, they were considered newcomers. "The reorganization plan displaces established colonies," Talth said, his translated voice carrying concern. "This affects not just humans but also marine settlements and Kephian outposts. Should we not consider the impact on existing populations?" A Zephyrin delegate responded with what passed for laughter among their species, a shimmer of colors across their energy form. "Young species always worry about displacement. This is the natural order of galactic development. Older civilizations have priority in resource allocation. This principle has guided the forum for millennia." Elena felt her jaw tighten but kept her expression neutral. Marcus Webb, her second-in-command, whispered beside her. "Here we go again." The vote proceeded quickly. The reorganization passed with 73 votes in favor, 18 against, and 6 abstentions. Every vote against came from species less than 1,000 years old. The older civilizations voted as a bloc, as they always did. Elena stood up. "The human delegation requests permission to present our security proposal." Zenthar's crystalline form shifted to patterns of mild annoyance. "Very well, Ambassador Vasquez. You may proceed, but please be brief. We have many agenda items today." Elena projected holographic displays into the center of the chamber. They showed maps of the outer territories highlighting areas where piracy and raids had increased dramatically over the past 2 years. "These zones have seen a 400% increase in criminal activity," she explained. "Human patrol fleets have been responding to distress calls, but we lack the authority to pursue criminals across certain borders. We propose a coordinated security network where multiple species contribute ships and share intelligence." She expanded the display to show detailed plans. "We've outlined cost-sharing formulas, command structures that respect each species' sovereignty, and response protocols. This system would protect everyone's colonies more effectively than our current fragmented approach." The presentation took 12 minutes. Elena and her team had practiced it dozens of times, anticipating questions and preparing answers. When she finished, she looked around the chamber hopefully. Zenthar barely glanced at the data. "Thank you for your input, Ambassador Vasquez. The forum will take your proposal under consideration. Next item on the agenda—" "Wait," Elena interrupted, something she had never done before. "Under consideration? High Arbiter, we submitted this proposal 6 months ago. We were told it would receive full debate at this forum. And it has been considered, a Krell representative rumbled. His species resembled upright reptiles covered in rocky plates. Your proposal requires significant resources from established civilizations to protect territories that younger species insist on settling in dangerous regions. Perhaps humans should choose safer locations for expansion. Those dangerous regions were unclaimed, Marcus spoke up, unable to contain himself. We followed all the protocols for colony establishment. We registered our claims properly. And now you're saying we should abandon them because you won't help defend them? We are saying, the Krell continued, that species who have been traveling the stars for only 3 centuries should not expect others to shoulder the burden of their ambitious expansion. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber from many of the older delegations. Elena saw Talth and a few other younger species representatives shaking their heads in frustration, but they remained silent. Speaking up too often could hurt your standing in the forum. The session continued for 6 more hours. Every time the human delegation tried to contribute, they were cut off or dismissed. When they raised concerns about unfair trade restrictions, they were told to be patient. When they asked about technology sharing agreements, they were informed that humans needed to prove their stability over several more centuries first. The final blow came near the end of the day. The forum voted on new regulations for faster-than-light travel routes. The regulations heavily favored ships from older civilizations, giving them priority access to the fastest lanes. Human vessels would be relegated to slower, more dangerous routes, adding weeks to journey times and costing their economy billions of credits annually. Elena stood slowly when the vote concluded. The chamber fell silent. Everyone could sense something different in her posture, something that had not been there before. Ambassador Vasquez, Zenthar said, his crystalline patterns showing caution now. Do you wish to file a formal objection? You may submit the appropriate documentation. No, Elena said quietly. Her voice was steady but carried throughout the chamber. I wish to make a statement. She took a breath and looked around the room, meeting as many eyes and visual sensors as she could. For 300 years, humanity has been a member of this forum. We joined with hope and excitement, eager to learn from older civilizations and contribute what we could to galactic peace. We have followed every rule, respected every tradition, and honored every agreement. She paused, letting her words sink in. We have offered our innovations in medical technology, our advances in sustainable agriculture, and our expertise in terraforming. We have proposed joint research initiatives, shared defense arrangements, and fair trade partnerships. We have submitted 467 proposals to this forum over 3 centuries. Elena's voice grew stronger. 467 proposals. Every single one rejected or ignored. Not because they lacked merit, but because we are young. Because our civilization is only 300 years into space travel, instead of 3,000. Because you see us as children who should be grateful for any scraps of attention you provide. Zenthar's patterns shifted to warning colors. Ambassador, you are out of order. These decisions are made democratically. Democratically? Elena's voice cut through the chamber. This is not democracy. This is oligarchy dressed in democratic clothing. The votes always go the same way. The old species vote together and the young species lose. Always. You call it democracy, but it is simply tyranny by the majority. Shocked silence filled the hall. No one had ever spoken to the High Arbiter this way. Several delegates began protesting, but Elena continued. Today you voted to reorganize sectors in a way that will displace millions of humans from their homes. You dismissed our security proposals that could have saved lives. You imposed trade restrictions that will damage our economy for decades. And through all of it, you barely listened. You certainly did not care. She gathered her data tablet and looked directly at Zenthar. We came seeking partnership. You offered us subordination. We came offering cooperation. You demanded patience that you define as centuries of silent obedience. While humanity is done being patient, Elena's delegation stood up beside her. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Unity Forum. We withdraw from all treaties and agreements administered by this body. We will defend our colonies ourselves. We will pursue our interests ourselves. We will build our future ourselves, the chamber erupted. Delegates jumped to their feet, some shouting protests, others demanding explanations. A few looked genuinely shocked. Zenthar's crystalline form flashed with patterns of anger and confusion. Elena turned to leave, and her delegation followed. As they walked toward the exit, she heard Xenthar calling for order. She heard other species already discussing what this meant, and she heard something else, laughter. Several of the older species were laughing. Let them laugh, Elena thought. They think we need them more than they need us. They think we will come back within months, desperate and apologetic. They think we are weak because we are young. As the doors closed behind the human delegation, Elena transmitted one final message on all diplomatic channels. Her face appeared on screens throughout the station. We came to you with open hands, she said. You saw only empty palms. We offered our friendship. You saw only inferiority. Now you will see what humanity does best. We adapt, we build, we survive. You had the chance to have us as partners. You chose to treat us as subordinates. Now you will have us as strangers. Live with that choice. The human ship detached from Harmony's Edge station and jumped to faster than light speed. Inside the vessel, Elena sat down heavily in her chair. Marcus looked at her with concern. Are you sure we did the right thing? Elena thought about the 7 years of frustration, the hundreds of dismissed proposals, the casual contempt in every interaction. She thought about the human colonies that would now be vulnerable without foreign protection. She thought about the massive gamble they had just taken. Yes, she said firmly. We did the only thing we could do. Now comes the hard part. Back on the station, Xenthar addressed the remaining delegates. His patterns showed confidence, though some of the younger species saw hints of uncertainty beneath. The humans will return within a few months, he announced. Their economy depends on our trade networks. Their colonies need our protection. This is simply political theater. When they realize they cannot survive alone, they will come back far more cooperative. Most of the older species nodded in agreement, but Ambassador Talth said nothing. He had seen something in Elena's eyes that worried him deeply. It was not anger or fear. It was determination, and he knew that humans, perhaps more than any other species in the galaxy, were dangerously good at being determined. In the following days, human ships stopped arriving at foreign ports. Human trade vessels disappeared from the major commercial lanes. Human diplomatic channels went silent. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from galactic civilization. And in that silence, something was beginning, something the Forum would not understand until it was far too late. The revelation: 3 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Unity Forum, and High Arbiter Xenthar was beginning to feel the first tremors of doubt. He sat in his private chamber aboard Harmony's Edge, reviewing reports that painted an increasingly troubling picture. His crystalline form pulsed with patterns of concern that he would never show publicly. The reports were clear. Human ships had completely vanished from Forum space, not reduced in number, completely gone. Human trading posts had closed. Human diplomatic channels remained silent. It was as if humanity had erected an invisible wall around their territory and disappeared behind it. They will return soon, Xenthar told his chief advisor, a Vorian named Kethral. They must. Their economy cannot function without our trade networks. Kethral's patterns showed uncertainty. High Arbiter, I have been reviewing our economic data. Human trade accounted for 17% of commercial activity in the outer sectors. The marine Kephians and 12 other younger species did most of their business with humans. Those economies are now struggling. Xenthar dismissed this with a wave of his crystalline appendage. The younger species always struggle. They will adapt or seek new partners. This is not our concern. But it was becoming everyone's concern whether they admitted it or not. In the outer territories where human patrol fleets once operated, piracy had exploded. The Crimson Claw Syndicate, a criminal organization that humans had kept suppressed for decades, now operated openly. They raided colonies, hijacked cargo ships, and demanded protection money from independent stations. Captain Vorn of the Krell Defense Force received desperate calls for help almost daily. His fleet was stretched thin trying to cover areas that human ships used to patrol. We need more vessels, he reported to his superiors. The humans were handling security for vast regions, and we never realized how much they were doing. The Forum's response was slow and bureaucratic. First came committees to study the problem, then debates about jurisdiction and funding, then arguments about which species should contribute ships to fill the gap. By the time any decisions were made, 3 colonies had been raided and hundreds of civilians killed. Ambassador Talth watched all of this with growing alarm. His people, the Marine, had done extensive trade with humanity. Marine colonies relied on human agricultural technology to supplement their food production. Without access to human technicians and spare parts, those systems were failing. His homeworld was facing potential food shortages within 6 months. Toth tried repeatedly to raise these concerns in forum sessions, but he was dismissed. The Marine are too dependent on a single trading partner, a Zephyrin delegate said. This is a failure of your planning, not a problem for the forum to solve. Meanwhile, something else was happening that few noticed at first. Small, independent species, civilizations too remote or insignificant for the forum to pay much attention to, were thriving. These were the societies that humanity had traded with extensively, often on very favorable terms. They had human technology, human expertise, and apparently continued access to human support. A forum intelligence analyst named Dressa made a troubling discovery. She was Silvari, a species that existed in liquid atmosphere and thought in mathematical patterns. Dressa had been tracking human ship movements before the withdrawal and noticed something strange. For years, human vessels had been traveling to remote regions that made no economic sense. Dangerous nebulas, unstable wormhole networks, and uncharted territories far from forum space. They were not just trading, Dressa reported to her superiors. They were exploring, mapping, building relationships with species we barely know exist. And they were doing it for decades, but her reports were filed away. The senior forum members were too busy debating trade, regulations, and territorial disputes to worry about what humans had been doing in remote space. Then came New Terra. The incident that changed everything. New Terra was a human colony world with 8 million inhabitants. It was prosperous, self-sufficient, and located in a system rich with rare minerals. The Crimson Claw Syndicate decided it would be their biggest prize yet. They assembled a massive fleet, 87 ships including battle cruisers, fighter carriers, and troop transports. The Syndicate's intelligence suggested that New Terra had only light defenses. A few orbital platforms, maybe some patrol boats. Nothing that could stand against their fleet. They planned to overwhelm the defenses, land troops, and strip the planet of everything valuable before anyone could respond. The attack began at dawn on New Terra. The Syndicate fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge and began their approach. Their sensors showed exactly what they expected: a handful of defense platforms and 3 patrol vessels. The Syndicate commander, a cyborg named Crazy, gave the order to attack with confidence. What happened next was captured by the Syndicate's own sensors. The footage would later be analyzed by every military intelligence service in the galaxy. The patrol boats vanished. Not destroyed, they simply disappeared as if they had never existed. Then the Syndicate's sensors went haywire. Proximity alarms screamed. Target locks appeared everywhere. More than 200 contacts materialized around the Syndicate fleet. Defense platforms the size of small asteroids powered up weapon systems that radiated energy signatures unlike anything in forum arsenals. Warships decloaked from stealth, sleek vessels with hull designs that seemed to bend light around them. Fighter craft poured from hidden carriers, moving with coordination that suggested advanced artificial intelligence. The human defense network opened fire, but they did not fire to kill. Every shot was calculated with surgical precision. Syndicate ships lost engines, leaving them adrift but intact. Weapon systems were disabled with pinpoint accuracy. Shield generators were overloaded, but life support remained untouched. Escape pods that launched were allowed to drift away safely. Crazy tried to order a retreat, but his ship's engines were already gone. He watched in horror as his entire fleet was systematically dismantled in less than 20 minutes. Not a single Syndicate ship was destroyed. Not a single pirate died, though many were injured. The efficiency was terrifying. The restraint was incomprehensible. Then a message came through on all frequencies. This is Admiral Wei Chen of the Human Defense Force. To the Crimson Claw Syndicate and anyone else listening, human space is defended. We do not seek war, but we will protect what is ours with absolute determination. Admiral Chen's face appeared on screens throughout the disabled Syndicate fleet. She was an older woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen combat. You are alive because we chose mercy. Do not mistake mercy for weakness. Tell your employers, tell the criminal networks, tell anyone who will listen. There will be no second warning. She paused, and her next words sent chills through every intelligence analyst who later reviewed the footage. The Galactic Unity Forum is welcome to continue their debates about peace and security. We will keep the peace our own way. The footage spread across the galaxy within days. Every species with intelligence capabilities obtained copies and analyzed them obsessively. The conclusions were unanimous and terrifying. Human military technology was at least 30 years ahead of Forum standards. Their stealth systems were undetectable by current sensors. Their weapons' accuracy suggested computational power far beyond what humans had ever displayed. Their coordination indicated artificial intelligence that surpassed anything the Forum possessed. And the scale. More than 200 warships and defense platforms appeared from nowhere to defend a single colony. If New Terra had that level of protection, what defended Earth itself? What protected the other human colonies? Where had all of this come from? Dressa the Silvery Analyst compiled a comprehensive report. She spent weeks reviewing every interaction humanity had with the Forum over 3 centuries. What she found shocked her. They were preparing for this the entire time, Dressa explained to an emergency session of the Forum Intelligence Committee. Every rejected proposal, every dismissed suggestion, every ignored warning, humans were learning what we would and would not accept. They were studying us while we dismissed them. She projected data showing human industrial development. 30 years ago, human shipyard capacity mysteriously dropped according to our surveys. We assumed their economy was struggling. We were wrong. They did not reduce production, they hid it. They built shipyards in regions we never surveyed using those dangerous wormhole networks they had been mapping for decades. More data appeared. Human colonies reported lower populations than expected. We thought they were failing to attract settlers. Actually, they were establishing hidden settlements in uncharted systems. They have been building a completely separate infrastructure outside Forum space. The committee members listened in growing disbelief. How did we miss all of this? Someone asked. Because we were not looking, Dressa said simply. We assumed they were weak because they were young. We assumed they needed us. We never considered that they might be preparing to leave, or that when they did leave, they would be stronger than us. High Arbiter Zenthar received Dressa's full report and felt something he had not experienced in centuries, genuine fear. He called an emergency council of the Forum's senior leadership. Representatives from the 20 oldest and most powerful species gathered in a secure chamber. We may have made a grave mistake, Zenthar admitted, his crystalline patterns showing colors of distress. The human withdrawal is not temporary. They planned this for decades, possibly for their entire membership. And they are not weak. They may be the most advanced military power in the galaxy. A Zephyrin Elder's energy form rippled with dismissive patterns. One impressive defensive display does not make them a superpower. They are isolated now, cut off from our trade networks and diplomatic channels. They will weaken over time. But Kethral, Zenthar's advisor, presented more troubling data. High Arbiter, we have confirmed that 17 independent species maintain active trade with humanity. These are civilizations we largely ignored, too small or too remote to matter. But collectively, they represent significant resources and strategic locations. Humanity has been building alliances while we ignored them. Over the following weeks, the situation deteriorated further. 4 more species announced their withdrawal from the Forum, all younger civilizations who had been consistently outvoted and dismissed. They did not join humanity exactly, but they established independent trade agreements and mutual defense pacts that excluded Forum oversight. The Marine were particularly pointed in their departure statement. Ambassador Talth stood before the Forum one last time. You taught us an important lesson, he said. Power matters more than justice in this Forum. Age matters more than merit. We are tired of being treated as subordinates. Humanity showed us there is another way. Criminal activity continued to surge. The Crimson Claw Syndicate was destroyed, but other groups filled the vacuum. Forum response remained slow and uncoordinated. More colonies were raided. More civilians died. The carefully maintained peace that had lasted for millennia was crumbling. Then came news that truly frightened the Forum leadership. A survey ship detected massive energy signatures in a previously uncharted nebula. When they investigated carefully, staying at extreme range, they found something that made their sensors scream with warnings. It was a human shipyard, but not like anything the Forum had seen before. The facility was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the Forum's biggest construction station, and it was building ships, dozens of them simultaneously. These were not patrol boats or defense platforms. These were capital ships, massive vessels with weapon systems and armor that dwarfed anything in the Forum fleet. The survey ship sent back footage before human patrol detected them. The humans did not attack or threaten. They simply sent a message: you chose separation. Respect our boundaries. Your crew is unharmed and free to leave. Do not return to this region. When Zenthar saw the footage, his crystalline form went dim with shock. Where did they get the resources for this? The technology? How long have they been building? Dressa had the answer. Based on the construction rate and facility size, I estimate this shipyard has been operational for at least 40 years. And High Arbiter, our long-range sensors have detected similar energy signatures in 7 other locations. This is not their only shipyard. It might not even be their largest. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just prepared to leave the Forum. They had prepared to survive and thrive without it. They had built an entire industrial and military infrastructure in secret, while maintaining the appearance of being a weak, dependent species. Zenthar finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. They were never going to come back, he said quietly. All this time we assumed they needed us. We were wrong. We needed them. The Forum descended into chaos. The older species blamed each other for not taking human proposals seriously. The younger species accused the leadership of arrogance and short-sightedness. Several more withdrawals were announced. Trade networks that had functioned for thousands of years began to collapse as key participants left. In desperation, Zenthar made a decision he never thought he would make. We must contact humanity, he told the senior council. We must negotiate their return. That would be admitting we were wrong, a Krell representative protested. It would show weakness. We are weak, Zenthar replied, his pattern showing bitter acceptance. The humans proved that. They left, and our entire system is falling apart. We need them far more than they need us. It is time we admitted that. The council debated for days, but reality could not be denied. Finally, they agreed to send an envoy to human space. They chose Ambassador Telth of the Marine. He had always spoken favorably about humanity, and he had led his own people's withdrawal. If anyone could open communication, it was him. Telth's ship approached the border of human space, broadcasting peace signals and requests for dialogue. For 2 days there was no response. Then a human patrol ship made contact. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force, a voice said.
State your purpose. I'm Ambassador Telth of the Marine Collective, he replied.
I carry a message from the Galactic Unity Forum. They wish to discuss humanity's return to the Forum. They want to negotiate. There was a long pause. Then Captain Rodriguez said, follow us. Do not deviate from the designated course. Telth's ship followed the patrol boat deep into human territory. What he saw amazed him. Defense platforms everywhere, more than he could count. Massive shipyards building vessels that made Forum battleships look like toys. Thriving colonies on worlds that the Forum had declared unsuitable for habitation, and everywhere construction. Humanity was building on a scale that seemed impossible for a species so young. They arrived at a diplomatic station called Resolute Anchorage. It was beautiful and functional, combining human aesthetics with practical design. Telth was escorted to a meeting room where Ambassador Elena Vasquez waited. Elena looked older than when Telth had last seen her. There were more gray strands in her hair, more lines around her eyes. But her gaze was still sharp and intelligent. Ambassador Telth, she said warmly, I'm glad to see you. I heard about the Marine withdrawal. I hope your people are well. We are managing, Telth replied. Better than we would have under Forum rules. Ambassador Vasquez, I come with a message from High Arbiter Zenthar. The Forum wishes to negotiate your return. They are prepared to offer better terms. Elena's expression did not change. What kind of terms? Telth explained. The Forum was offering humanity a permanent seat on the Senior Council. They would remove the trade restrictions. They would provide military support for human colonies. They would even agree to review some of humanity's old proposals. When he finished, Elena sat back in her chair. Ambassador Telth, I'm going to be completely honest with you. The Forum is not offering these things because they suddenly respect humanity. They are offering them because they are desperate. Their system is collapsing and they think we can fix it. That may be true, Telth admitted. But would returning not benefit humanity as well? You would have access to Forum markets, technology, and alliances. Elena smiled sadly. We already have markets. We have been trading with 17 independent species for decades. We have technology, our own technology, developed because the Forum would not share theirs, and we have alliances with civilizations that respect us as equals, not subordinates. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. For 300 years, we tried to be good Forum members. We followed every rule, respected every tradition, and offered our best ideas and innovations. We were dismissed, ignored, and laughed at, not because our ideas were bad, but because we were young. Elena turned back to face Telth. Now the Forum wants us back because they need us, but they do not respect us. They respect our military power and our economic strength. That is not the foundation for partnership. That is just a new kind of subordination. What would it take? Telth asked. What would humanity require to return? Elena's answer was immediate and firm. Complete restructuring of the Forum. Democratic reform where every species has an equal voice regardless of age. Transparent decision-making. Accountability for past injustices. And formal apologies to every species that was dismissed and ignored over the centuries. She looked at Telth directly. In other words, the Forum would have to become something completely different. Something it has never been. Can Zenthar offer that? Telth knew the answer. The old powers would never agree to give up their authority. They might make temporary concessions, but real structural change? Never. No, he said honestly. They cannot offer that. Then we have nothing to negotiate, Elena said gently. Ambassador Telth, you and your people are always welcome here. Any species that wants genuine partnership will find humanity ready and willing, but we will not return to a system designed to keep us subordinate. Telth returned to Harmony's Edge with Elena's answer. The Forum leadership reacted with anger, denial, and finally fear. They had believed they were the center of galactic civilization. They had believed younger species needed them to survive. They had believed their age and experience made them superior. Humanity had proven all of those beliefs wrong. And now the Forum faced a choice: change everything about how they operated, or watch their system continue to crumble while humanity and its allies built something new. High Arbiter Zenthar sat alone in his chamber, his crystalline form pulsing with colors of regret. He thought about all the human proposals he had dismissed, all the warnings he had ignored, all the contributions he had rejected. We had 300 years to make them true partners, he said to the empty room. We chose pride over wisdom. Now we will live with the consequences. Outside the window, he could see ships departing Harmony's Edge, another species announcing their withdrawal. The Galactic Unity Forum, which had maintained peace for millennia, was dying. Not from war or disaster, but from its own arrogance. Humanity had walked away, and in doing so, they had shown every dismissed and ignored species that there was another path. The galaxy would never be the same.